Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So one question that's been circulating for a little while now is, what is going on with Microsoft and acquisitions? Is Xbox going to be acquiring any more studios, because they have been relatively quiet since that big Bethesda acquisition? Now there's probably a good reason for that, which we'll of course get into here in just a little bit, but it does sound like Xbox is still looking for more studios, so we're going to go over all of that later on in the video. Now also, we do need to talk about PlayStation today, as they have now confirmed they are bringing one of their biggest IP over to PC. This is quite a shift in the PlayStation business over the last few years, and yeah, it's definitely continuing forward, so we're going to go over that one as well. To start the video off though, we're actually once again going to be talking about The Witcher 3 and also Cyberpunk 2077. We did actually just talk about that next generation port for The Witcher 3 yesterday, as a PEGI rating did appear online. So I did kind of figure there was going to be an imminent announcement, but I was a little questionable on whether or not this will actually release by the end of 2021, as they previously did hope for. I kind of figured it would probably be pushed back into 2022, and that is now in fact what is actually happening. They did confirm that next generation version for The Witcher 3 has now been pushed back to 2022, or actually Q2 to be more specific. Now we still don't have an exact release date for this next generation version, so we're going to have to wait for that still, but I am actually pretty happy that this will be releasing in Q2 rather than Q1. Seems like all of these games that are getting delayed are being pushed into the first couple months of the year, specifically in February, so I'm actually quite happy that a game as great as this is going to be pushed into a less busy part of the year, or at least right now. Now they did actually also confirm that Cyberpunk 2077 will also miss that 2021 target and will now be set for a Q1 2022 release. Yeah, we might actually be looking at a February release with Cyberpunk 2077, but I will stand by what I've said about this game in the past. It actually is a pretty decent game. I know it has a bad reputation, but that's more because maybe it didn't meet expectations with all of the bugs and glitches, but if you don't run into all of those bugs and glitches, it's actually a pretty decent game. So hopefully that next generation version will have a much smoother launch than what we saw last year on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Moving on though, we do need to talk about those PlayStation 5 faceplates yet again. This is something that we talked about earlier this week, as Sony tried to shut down Dbrand from selling third-party PlayStation 5 faceplates. Sony has targeted a few of these third-party sellers, including PlayStation 5 last year and now Dbrand. Dbrand did receive a cease and desist earlier this week, which required them to no longer sell their custom faceplates, which they do look pretty good. If you don't like that original white color that the PlayStation 5 comes with, Dbrand was a pretty good option here, as you could simply go purchase these, which look pretty nice, and you can easily swap them out and have more of that matte black color if you prefer that style. It's completely up to you, and this is one of the things that I do really like about the PlayStation 5. I think the design with these swappable custom shells is really nice, though it seems like Sony will beg to differ. It doesn't seem like they exactly appreciate these third-party sellers trying to sell their own custom faceplates. Now, as to the reason why, I'm not really sure. I do believe that they'll probably try to sell their own limited edition faceplates in the future, so that could be one reason. Up to this point, though, they haven't done that, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. The good news here, though, is that Dbrand was only temporarily taken down, as they've already announced some new PlayStation 5 faceplates. As you can see here, they did change the design quite a bit, as they have these huge vents on the side now. Whether you like this style or not is completely up to you. They do say that it has better airflow this way, though whether that's actually the case or not is up for debate. But at the very least, this should keep Sony off of their back. I really wish Sony wouldn't target these third-party sellers, because, you know, these are very good options for customers, and it is nice to have all these options out there to customize your own PlayStation 5. I guess because it looks so similar to those original shells, though, Sony might have a problem with that, because, again, I believe they'll probably have their own special editions in the future. What I will say, though, is that if Sony does intend on bringing their own official shells out in the future, I really hope they decide to make an original PlayStation-themed PlayStation 5 shell. Let's go ahead and talk about Xbox, though, as this week has, again, just been very busy with Xbox news, and that continues on with a few different topics here today, the first of which we will talk about Xbox Game Pass. Some Xbox Game Pass results did make its way online yesterday, which has the community buzzing both positively and negatively. Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure it's as negative as what some people are hoping it is, but we'll get into all of that here in just a moment. I'll kind of explain what is happening here. Okay, so basically, Microsoft's financial year, which ends on June 30th of 2021, has revealed the growth of Xbox Game Pass subscribers during that financial year, which is actually 37%. And that's actually really healthy growth right there. So you would think the community would be ecstatic about this, but there's a caveat to this because Microsoft's targeted goal for that financial year was actually 48% growth. So they did miss their goal here, which is where a lot of the discussion lays when it comes to this topic. You know how the community can be. We often do focus on the negative rather than the positive. And, you know, there are some people out there that desperately want Xbox Game Pass to fail. I mean, I'm just being honest here. Some people do want this service to fail, but actually the numbers here does not point to any of that at all, not even remotely. It actually shows healthy growth and a building block for Xbox Game Pass. See, the very first thing you need to realize about this projected target is that this was actually made before Halo Infinite was delayed. So that Halo Infinite changed the landscape for Xbox majorly last year, especially for Xbox Game Pass. Halo is one of Xbox's most important franchise, and debatably it might be the most important franchise for Xbox. So with that delay, this is going to majorly impact a service such as Xbox Game Pass. So that could be one reason that they didn't meet that projected target. But despite that, they still had very healthy growth here at 37%, which is actually quite impressive, especially considering that they still haven't started releasing all of their big first-party games into Xbox Game Pass. Once that starts to happen, we're really going to start to see whether or not those acquisitions have been worth it. We should start to see more of that throughout this generation, and even this holiday. I mean, we do have some big releases such as Age of Empires 4, Forza Horizon 5, and then Halo Infinite. That could have a big impact on a service like Xbox Game Pass because these first-party games are very important for services like this. We see that with Netflix originals, or with Disney Plus and all of the different IP that they have. First-party content is very important. So we're going to have to kind of see what happens here as they start to roll out all of these exclusive games into a service like Xbox Game Pass. But yeah, them missing this projected goal here is not really anything big, and I think it's to be expected with a delay such as Halo Infinite. Now, speaking of Xbox acquisitions, it sounds like they are far from done when it comes to studio acquisitions. They have been a little quiet this year ever since they acquired Bethesda, and some fans wonder, with a big acquisition like that, are they indeed done? I mean, we've seen studios like PlayStation. They've picked up quite a few studios this year, including Blue Point Games. They picked up Housemarque along with Nix's and some others. So PlayStation has been acquiring all these studios, and well, Xbox fans, they are wondering, is Xbox going to jump back in and pick up more studios or not? So Wall Street Journal's asked Phil Spencer the million-dollar question themselves, and check out what he had to say. I'm really proud of some of the creators that have chosen to become part of Xbox. So many of these creators, they have choice. If you look at some of the people we've acquired and partnered with, it's people we've had long-term relationships with, and they've come inside of Xbox now, and they see our roadmap on platform and service, and I want them to be able to do their most amazing creative work as part of this team. We offer some financial stability for them. It's not about only the success of their next game. I want to give them some more creative capability, longer timelines when required to do their best work, and that's my goal. We're big believers in the power of content. You've heard Satya Nadella talk about it, heard Amy Hood talk about it. So we're always out there looking for people who we think would be a good match and teams that would be a good match with our strategy. So we're definitely not done. There's no quota, there's no kind of timeline where I have to go acquire studios by a certain time. But if we find a studio where we have a good fit, we share what we're trying to go do and what they're trying to go do. And if we feel we can both get better together, absolutely. So there you have it. This is specifically coming from the ex-boss himself, they are definitely not done. Now, as to when they acquire their next studio, I mean, that could be next week, it could be next month, it could be a year from now. We really don't know, but you can clearly see here that they are indeed still looking. Now, I do think that there were some interesting things that he did note here, because he also preached about creativity and he also talked about long-term relationships. I mean, you can use Double Fine as an example here, but you can really see both of those things when it comes to Xbox acquisitions. Double Fine is a studio that's worked with Xbox in the past. I mean, they did work on the original Psychonauts game together on that original Xbox. So they do have a past history together. You can actually see the same thing with Ninja Theory. They worked together in the past on Kung Fu Chaos. Again, that was on the original Xbox. So with studios like that, they do have that long-term relationship, and you can say the same thing with Playground Games. You can say the same thing with Bethesda, and the list just kind of goes on and on. So you can kind of use that as an indication on maybe some of the studios that they'll work with in the future. When thinking about studios like that, some studios that comes to mind would be Moon Studios, which worked on Ori and the Blind Forest, though I don't think that they want to be acquired. There's also Asobo, which is working on Flight Simulator, and even Crystal Dynamics. They do have a long history with them, though they're actually owned by Square Enix, so I'm not sure how possible it would be to acquire them. Nonetheless, though, it still does sound like Microsoft is searching for more game studio acquisitions, so this is something worth paying attention to. We could see some more acquisition announcements in the coming years from Xbox, and really it's just a matter of when rather than if. And really, I know that there's always that concern when it comes to acquisitions, but I don't view this as a bad thing. Something that Phil Spencer did talk about here was creativity, and we have seen that with some of their acquisitions already. They did help Double Fine make Psychonauts 2 into a better game. They gave them more time, they gave them a bigger budget, and, well, they legitimately made a Game of the Year candidate. We also saw that last year with Wasteland 3 and NXO. They made one of the best RPGs last year, and a big part of that was because Xbox afforded them more time and gave them a bigger budget. So they are helping these studios reach their potential, and that's exactly what you want to see. Plus, when it comes to Xbox acquisitions, they do release their games on both Xbox consoles as well as PC. Now, before I go, we do need to talk about PlayStation as well, as they are bringing yet another game over to PC, and this is a big one. Like a really big one, being God of War. Yes, God of War has now in fact been confirmed for a PC release, Steam to be specific, and will be out on January 14th of 2022. So this game is not too far away, and this just once again just shows you how committed PlayStation is to PC. We've been seeing it a lot over the last couple years, and what a lot of fans believed was impossible just 5 years ago, well, they are indeed bringing a lot of their first-party games over to PC, including Horizon. They're bringing over Uncharted to PC. Days Gone was released on PC earlier this year. We're hearing rumors about a Bloodborne release, and now we're also seeing God of War. I mean, some of their biggest franchises are heading over to PC, and I mean, they even acquired Nixxes, which specializes in porting games over to PC. So without a doubt, Sony is committing hard to PC games, and I imagine they have a lot more in store for us over the next couple of years. Now, there's still some big questions that revolves around their commitment to PC, which we'll get into here in just a moment, but God of War is one of their best games. I've said this in the past, but I think the PlayStation 4 God of War is one of the most perfect single-player experiences, and PC fans are going to love this game. The trailer that they showed also shows some pretty nice-looking graphics here. It does look much better than that PlayStation 4 version. They do say that this includes high-fidelity graphics, which includes 4K resolution and unlocked frame rates for peak performance. This will also have NVIDIA DLSS and reflex support. You do have different customizations when it comes to controls, whether you want to use the DualShock 4 or even that DualSense wireless controller used for the PlayStation 5, and it will also have ultra-wide support, so you can customize this game quite a bit on PC, which is exactly what you want to see. Again, though, with PlayStation bringing one of their most recognizable franchises over to PC, this does show you just how committed they are to bringing their games to PC. Now, with that said, so far they've really only done this with PlayStation 4 games. They've yet to do it with one of their PlayStation 5 games, though there's some rumors that they might be doing that with games such as Horizon Forbidden West down the future. And honestly, I wouldn't doubt that at all. Now, I know that there's going to be that constant speculation of PlayStation bringing their games day day and date to PC and PlayStation 5. That's what Microsoft does, but honestly, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon with PlayStation. Now, I can't completely rule it out because I'm never going to say never, but I think that they'll probably do staggered releases when it comes to their PC content. The console business for PlayStation is just too important for them. They do run things a little bit differently than what Xbox does and how they use Xbox Game Pass. So really, I don't think that they're going to do day and date, but I do think that they will bring some PlayStation 5 games to PC sometime in the future, whether that's 6 months down the road or a year after the PlayStation 5 release or even further. I imagine that's probably what they're going to do going forward. What I will say, though, with them committing more and more towards the PC brand, I do wonder if they decide to make their own storefront eventually. This is something that we see a lot in the PC side of things. A lot of these publishers do make their own PC stores, whether that be EA, Ubisoft, or really a bunch of others. I wonder if PlayStation will try to do something like that in the future, or are they going to stick with Epic Games and, as you can see here, Steam? We'll kind of see about all that, but nonetheless, big news here. And I mean, especially if you're getting the Steam Deck here soon, that console continues to look really good. And before I was saying that that's a low-key Xbox console, but with more and more PlayStation games heading over to Steam, yeah, I can also call this a low-key PlayStation handheld console. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and with all this talk about PlayStation 5 customization and faceplates, I wanted to ask you all, if you own the PlayStation 5, have you bought any custom faceplates? And, well, the large majority of you here does not do this. 67% of you said no, while only 7% said yes. So, there you have it. It doesn't seem like most people actually bother with this. I still think that it's a very cool option to have because I'm always going to root for customization, but really I do fall in at 67% as well. I have not customized my PlayStation 5 as really I'm fine with the original white color. I know not everybody necessarily likes it, but I don't mind it personally. And I mean, if they do make some custom special edition shells, yeah, I might check it out, especially if they do an original PlayStation 1 themed shell. That one I might be interested in, but yeah, that's just my opinion. It is really interesting to see just how many of you all actually take advantage of this option, though, so very interesting to say the least. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.